Magua, Panyua, Jerusalem, stand to face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatha Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh, Asherah, Nathan the Nawa, Hashabath, Bashalawam, the water, Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Alim Ma'ah Shariah Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Rayam Mayim Ye Oh Hariam Mayan Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Mayahu Shash Mayam Waratiza La Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yela Yanawam Shashwa Marka Hanela Yanawam Wala Yeshan Shashwama Yeshvale Yahweh Shemarie Yahweh Tazalia Ayub Yim Yawumam Hashemash La Kaya Wayarak La Balayela Yahweh Yashemari Makau Ra Yashemar Napashya Yahweh Yashemar Habalakya Wabawaya My Thad will aid I will Basham Yahweh Shai for what Aman.
Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, Hero Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Echad.
Deuteronomy 6 and 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Fapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abinawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwavka, Taba'a, Rotazawanka, Hayya, Aisha, Barataza, Kaba Shemayim, Latanganawa, Lakham, Yawam, Sad, Wasalaklanawa, Kabawat Nawa, Kasalak Nawa, Kabawat Yanawa. Well, Abiyarnawa, oh, Messiah one, Abo, I was shine our Marai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa Allah, Wa Thapara, Why Walam, Aman.
Matthew 6 and 9. Apphus men are therefore prayed. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. Aisharamatazawa, 10 Commandments. La'ab, Yahayab, Lakad, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpinyat, La'ab, Thaishad, Lakad, Paso, Wala'ab, Thaibadam, La'ab, Talakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, La Shawat, Zakat, Ath, Hayawam, Ashabath, La Quadashwa, Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka, La Ad, Taratazak, La Ad, Tana'ab, La Ad, Daganab, La Ad, Tainad, Shakur, La Ad, Takhamad, Ko, Asharet, Lara'ika, Aman.
Exodus 22. I am the Lord thy God, which I brought thee out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Honor thy father and thy mother, that their days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Aman. Yeshabwa, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, ba Shimi Hawashai, Ashura, Nathanana, Parya, Gapa, Thwada Aman. La Yahweh, ba Shimi Hawashai, Af, Yashar Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh. In the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the fruit of the vine, thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Amadwa, Panjua Yerushalayim, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyar, Wanawa'ai, Aliyawan, Malak, Shel, Shemayim, Warataza, Wakal, Dabarim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Habnawa, Apale, Yawa Aitaza, Yahawisha, Zakarnawa, Yahawa, Baratazawan, Ainka, Yashala, Izarnawa, Bana, what's up? Yashala, oh, Nanawa, Yam Yam, Ifa, Kayawam, Makwadam, Babakusha, Shalak. Mike Allah, what has wadak? Allahayim, La, Maganawa, Raparnawa, Washama, Elnawa, Bakwar, Shalak, Haroka, Shal, Yawashai, Lanawa, Madnawa, Rabiim, Kakamai, Thabawana, what I Shal, the Barka, Basham. Yehoshai, for what if them yet? Why will Maman English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember Yahweh favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, Most High, we beg you right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latan Lanawab, Hatawarat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latan Lanawab, Awar, Larawat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latan Lanawab, Quran, Hayo, Lakorab, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherat, Latan Lanawab, Hasheman, Zayeth, Lamashak, Yasha'alab, Yishabwa. Be seated. Okay, so Shalom Yasharala.
Shalom.
So Shalom, everybody that's here in Philly. Shalom, everybody watching on live stream. And Shalom, everyone listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Hayashara Kanas, which just means the Congregation of Israel, where we teach the descendants of slaves as well as the indigenous peoples make up the southern and northern kingdoms of the 12 tribes of Israel. Once lost, now found. That we fall into a lower state politically, economically, even religiously, because we broke the laws of God found in the Bible, given to us by Moses. And that we come out of this lower state that we fall into by turning back to these commandments we broke by following Jesus Christ as our example. One way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath day holy every seventh day of the week. In our particular branch of Christ, we go through a Sabbath service. This Sabbath, we're going to be going back to the Apocrypha, going through the history of the Maccabees, namely First Maccabees chapters 11 and 12. Once again, First Maccabees chapter 11 and 12. So we're going to get some more key events as far as what's happening here. As we know, when we read last time, we had Judas fall in battle, yet he died valiantly in battle, who was the son that Mattathias of the priestly family of Joarib entrusted to be the captain to fight the battles. Now Jonathan went in his stead after he died. So now Jonathan is the key leader. And we're going to see also Simon come into the picture as well, who was also one of the sons of Mattathias as well. He had 5 altogether, and we read about 3 of those sons in particular that did notable acts. Not to discredit the others, but as far as we read here in the Maccabees, we see most of the history pertaining to Judas, Jonathan, and Simon. At this time, Jonathan is our leader at this point, for those of us that still seek righteousness, because as we read throughout the Maccabees, you had those were people who stood for righteousness and were on the side of the sons of Mattathias because they followed the Most High. Then you also had those of our people that were sold to do mischief, right? Who were what? Sellouts, sold to do mischief under these heathen, namely the Greeks, who were the top empire. So you see this conflict going back and forth between us that serve God, us that wanted to serve the heathen, and then the heathen themselves. So let's get into it. My name is Nabia Zerubbabel. I'll be doing the service today. Make sure you put down in your notes that it's the 13th of August, 2022, according to the Gregorian calendar. Then according to, it would be the 5th month and the 17th day. Once again, the 5th month and the 17th day according to our calendar. Okay, so First Maccabees chapter 11 in verse 1. Now just say come once you have it. Oops. So you have that?
First Maccabees 11.
Yeah. So it says in First Maccabees chapter 11 in verse 1, which we know from the previous chapter, we see that there's like a jockeying to see who can win favor with Jonathan, who's a leader at this point of the sons of Mattathias of the house of Aaron, between these different Greek factions that are warring with each other, of the Seleucid dynasty and of the Ptolemaic dynasty, one of the 4 major dynasties that came after Alexander the Great, going back to First Maccabees chapter 1. And we're reading about a certain figure whose name was Alexander as well, but not the Alexander the Great that we know, son of Philip of Macedonia, but another Alexander, as well as the Ptolemy, who at this time is Ptolemy the Sixth, and then we have a Demetrius, who you have a father and a son, but now the son is coming into play, which was the first Sota and the second, which I forget his surname, but I have a tab I'm going to share with you guys. We can take a look at it, so that when you read the history in places like the Maccabees, you can go to a primary source like Encyclopedia Britannica or even Wikipedia, because remember Wikipedia just pulls from primary sources anyway. The key is just to look at the bottom where you see the references to see where certain references, certain information comes from to verify what you read. Because you usually hear a blanket statement people put out there and they go, oh, you can't trust Wikipedia. What they don't explain is you get to verify the sources that are actually referenced in Wikipedia, right? And they even have disclaimers in there that say, this article is subject to question for one reason or another. So let's make sure you just proof it by looking at whatever primary source they may have pulled certain information from, like an encyclopedia or like a primary source, a book by a certain historian to verify certain information. That's what it's all about when we do research, right? To get primary and secondary sources to certify things. But ultimately, us that know the truth, we go back to the Bible to show what we can prove without a shadow of a doubt, because we know God's word is true, every man a liar. So as we do research and just verify certain information, we read books like this, like the Maccabees or like Chronicles or Kings, right, where there's a lot of history in there. Always just want to use those primary and secondary sources, history books, as a means of supporting what the scriptures say, right? When we do the research and we get into more detail behind things. But this is First Maccabees 11. It says in verse 1, it says, "And the king of Egypt gathered together a great host, like the sand that lieth upon the seashore, in many ships, and went about through deceit to get Alexander's kingdom and join it to his own." So remember this Alexander, he's part of the Seleucid dynasty, which came out of this man Seleucus, one of Alexander's generals. The king of Egypt here is talking about another Greek, a Ptolemy, namely the sixth. Then it says in verse 2, whereupon he took his journey into Syria in peaceable manner, right? Because Syria was part of that territory that the Seleucids controlled. You look on the map. So as they of the cities opened unto him and met him, for King Alexander had commanded him to do so because he was his father-in-law, right? Because remember we read previously, they had an arrangement where he said, look, I'll let you marry my daughter so we can have an alliance. But now, as we're going to see with Esau, they had trickery, right? Where they say one thing but do something else, right? The forked tongue, as we say. But they even do it amongst each other. So I'll just share this real quick. This is the Alexander that we're talking about here. Let me see, make sure you guys can see this. I try to zoom in on the text so you guys can see it clear. So this is Alexander's surname, Balas. Anytime you look up these certain figures when we read in history, the key is always to look at the summary, and you want to get more details, you can go further down. For the sake of time, I was going to key figures, key details, because it's all about the dynasty, right? Look at the dynasty as far as predecessor, successor, who do they marry, right? Those are the key details that we want. And then from there, you read the history, you see, okay, who had power over what? Which land, where was their border? Where did it stop? Did they expand their borders? Did their borders decrease at the wars? Right? Because that's pretty much what history is. The rise and fall of nations and the transfer of power from one people to another, right? At all levels, money, resources, land, people, right? So this says, Alexander Theopator Yergeti, surname Balas, was ruler of the Seleucid Empire from 150, some 152, to August 145 BC. So we see we're in that same time frame as Jonathan, right? Surname Apphus, during the time of his reign. We looked on the Atlas, which we'll pull it up again, but probably in the second chapter, to show where these lands were and who was fighting for what at what time. Picked from obscurity and supported by the neighboring Roman allied kingdom of Pergamon, Alexander landed in Phoenicia in 152 BC. He started a civil war against the Seleucid king Demetrius I Soter. So this is that Demetrius we were reading about before, right? In the previous chapters, who, as we're going to find out, has a son to succeed him. Backed by mercenaries and factions of the Seleucid Empire, unhappy with the existing government, he defeated Demetrius and took the crown in 150 BC. He married Princess Cleopatra Thea, which we see here, was the ruler of the Hellenistic Seleucid Empire. It says she was queen consort of Syria from 150 to 125 BC as the wife of 3 Syrian kings. Once again, he's referring to Greeks, not necessarily native Syrians or Aramites, right? Those who come out of Aram. Alexander Balas, who is the main article is about. Demetrius II Nicator, who was what? Demetrius the first son. And Antiochus VI Cytides. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. So why does it mention those 3? We're going to get into that as we read on in this chapter when it comes to the different finagling that Demetrius is going to try to do to gain the advantage over Alexander. So this is the Cleopatra theory. So there's more than one Cleopatra. The first Cleopatra was actually Philometor VI. I think it was his wife, if I'm not mistaken. She had many different Cleopatras. You go throughout history. So you always want to make sure you check that surname just to make sure you know which one you're reading about. Just like you have more than one Demetrius, you have more than one Alexander, you have more than one Cleopatra too. But back to the main article here about Alexander. It says to seal an alliance with the neighboring Ptolemaic kingdom, which again was Ptolemy the Sixth. It was going to come up as you read on a little bit more. His reign saw the steady retreat of the Seleucid Empire's eastern border, with important eastern satrapies such as Media being lost to the nascent Parthian Empire. So remember, that was part of the Greek Empire when they went eastward, but now they're losing it to other empires that are rising, right? Along with them, we see it above of being allied with Rome, who's going to become the chief ally or the chief empire in a minute, right? As the Greeks are still in power, but they're on the decline. In 147 BC, Demetrius II Nicator, the young son of Demetrius I, began a campaign to overthrow Pallas, and civil war resumed. Alexander's ally, Ptolemaic king Ptolemy VI Philometor, moved troops into Seleucia to support Alexander, but then switched sides and threw his support behind Demetrius II. See that? So, as we're going to read in First Maccabees, the 11th chapter, we're going to see events that pertain to this history, right? Where he came one way as a friend, but then betrayed him to what place his son, Demetrius II, in power. Then it says finally at the Battle of Oniaparos River in Syria, he was defeated by Ptolemy VI and died shortly afterward. So there's some spoilers in there, but it's okay. But now we're going to read the history in the scriptures that touches on this and goes into more detail as it pertains to what they were doing and also how it connects with what was going on with Jonathan and our people that were in Israel, right? As we were all ruling at the same time. Those men were ruling at the same time. All right, so let's go back to First Maccabees 11. Just let's continue on. In verse 3, First Maccabees 11 and 3. So remember that Cleopatra theory we're reading about, that was actually the one of the daughters of that Ptolemy VI. That's why it says father-in-law, because that's who Alexander was married to. Verse 3, now as Ptolemy entered into the cities, he set in every one of them a garrison of soldiers to keep it. And when he came near to Azotus, they showed him the temple of Dagon that was burnt. We read about that in the last chapter, right? About how Esau, as he comes into power, as the Greeks and the Romans, they would oftentimes adopt and adapt the gods of the nations they conquered and make them their own, change their face to look like them. We see him even doing that with our God, the true and living God, and doing it with his son, our Lord and Savior, as well as the Elohim, trying to make them look like them. So true to form, back then and now. And because Dagon, remember, was a Hamite god of the Philistines, who were cousins to the Egyptians. And Azotus, that was a coastal city along the west bank of Israel. And the suburbs thereof that were destroyed, and the bodies that were cast abroad, and them that he had burnt in battle, but they had made heaps of them by the way where he should pass. Also they told the king whatsoever Jonathan had done, to the intent that he might blame him, but the king held his peace, right? Because, as we read before, Alexander, he's got no issue with Jonathan. If anything, he wants to keep him as an ally. Then Jonathan met with the king with great pomp at Joppa, also on the West Bank. You look on the coast of Israel, where they saluted one another and lodged. Afterward, Jonathan, when he had gone with the king to the river called Euphrates, returned again to Jerusalem. Right, so they had a meeting and broke bread. King Ptolemy, therefore, having gotten the dominion of the cities by the sea unto Seleucia upon the seacoast, imagined wicked counsels against Alexander, which we just read that history, right? Concerning what's going to happen between the two of them, even though that's his, his son-in-law, right? Whereupon he sent, because remember we read that in history, the back and forth, especially between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, between those two empires of the Greeks. So they just can't seem to get it together, man. One wants what the other one has, the other one wants what the other person has, right? What's up with the the brotherly hatred, right? But that's what they do. That's their calling card, right? Whereupon he sent ambassadors unto King Demetrius, saying, "Come, let us make a league betwixt us, and I will give thee my daughter, whom Alexander hath, and thou shalt reign in thy father's kingdom." See that? So he's making a plea to who do we read about? Demetrius II, Nikeda, who was the son of Demetrius I, Soter. That was the father's kingdom that he's talking about. But look at this. He wants to give his daughter, Cleopatra Thea, we read about, right, over to him when she's supposed to be already married to Alexander. So, how wild is that, right? It's like she's already been, married to Alexander, but now you want to take her, a married woman, and then give her over to this man. That's why we read that history about what? Her not only being married to Alexander Balas, but also to Demetrius II, Nikeda, right? Which is going into what's actually going to happen in the future as we read on. So it says, "And thou shalt reign in thy father's kingdom. For I repent, and I gave my daughter unto him, for he sought to slay me." So now he's going into trumping up a story to say, what is the reason why, I gave her to him, right? Not like I wanted to, but I really wanted to be with you. Thus did he slander him because he was desirous of his kingdom. See that? So he's scheming, right? So he's trying to badmouth the opposition, right? So he can gain advantage. Therefore, he took his daughter from him and gave her to Demetrius. This is the second Demetrius, Demetrius II, and forsook Alexander, so that their hatred was openly known, right? So imagine that, right? Alexander Balas made an agreement with Ptolemy VI, and he said, "Okay, I'll allow you to have my daughter to wife, right? Cleopatra Thea." And then now I'm going to say, you know what? No, I want her to be with Demetrius now, right? So you can only imagine how, this alliance now is just falling to pieces that they once had. Him, Alexander, with Ptolemy the Sixth. It says in 13, "Then Ptolemy entered into Antioch, where he set 2 crowns upon his head, the crown of Asia and of Egypt." See that? So once again, the Ptolemaic dynasty isn't enough for me. I want the Seleucid dynasty too. The heck with you, Alexander. I want you out of here, right? I got my guy Demetrius over here. He's going to be your replacement. He's on my side now. In the mean season was King Alexander in Cilicia, because those dwelt in those parts had revolted from him, right? So it was the cold months, right? The winter months. But it says that he was what? In Cilicia, right? So he tried to hide or reposition himself, so he couldn't get attacked. It says, "But when Alexander heard of this, he came to war against him, whereupon King Ptolemy brought forth his host and met him with a mighty power to put him to flight. So Alexander fled into Arabia, where there to be defended, but King Ptolemy was exalted." So he adjusted his position, to go to Arabia, which is also in that region too, right? Adjacent to where Israel is, and in the other places where the Greeks are, which they call Asia Minor. It says Ptolemy was exalted, for Zabdiel the Arabian took off Alexander's head and sent it unto Ptolemy. So, such is the end of Alexander Belas. He thought he was going to be able to find succor or help, or at least be in a safe place, but they didn't realize that these Arabians, right? They were actually in favor with Ptolemy too. So they end up being his enemy, cut off his head to then give it to Ptolemy, right? To show, yeah, Ptolemy, we're with you, we're not with him. And here's his head, right? As a what do you call it? A token of gratitude, right? King Ptolemy also died the third day after, and they that were in the strongholds were slain one of another. So so then going to war with each other, him trying to take over Alexander, he ended up dying himself. So it's like, for all your finagling and unrighteous dealings, right? Now both of you are dead. And now it says, by this means Demetrius reigned in 107 years. So now this Demetrius II, Nikeda, right, who he wanted this allyship with, now he's the one that remains, right, after these schemes. So this makes me just think of, was it saying Ecclesiasticus? Let me get it real quick. I can link this with 19. It's like, congratulations, you did it. You tricked your fellow Greek of another empire to get his stuff, and now you died too. You tricked him, killed him, and now you end up dead. This is Ecclesiasticus. In the right place. Oh, here we go. Ecclesiasticus chapter 10. Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 in verse 8. These guys are an example of this. You can read that real quick. Kahan, Baba Kusha. Ecclesiasticus 10 and 8 to link with 11 and 19. We would appreciate it. So whenever you're ready, huh?
Ecclesiasticus 10 and 8, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another.
Right. So for all these unrighteous dealings you see with the Greeks, it's all it's going to do is facilitate the civil war between them. It's going to end up leading into what? Other Edomites taking over, but a different kingdom, right? Same nation, but a different kingdom. The kingdom of the Romans, right? Who are up and coming. When you go into Demetrius, his father and son, they have an alliance with them, right, for support. But now it's going to come a time when even they're going to fall away. Then the Romans will be the ones to take the leadership. So it's all in the making, but just important to note this history of, as we might say today, white on white crime. But we know they're not white. There's no white person, right? So Esau on Esau crime. Because like to put that on us and other dark nations, right? Look how they fight each other. But them being the chief ruler, they're the ones that set the standard. So you got the us in confusion as well as the other dark nations following Esau's lead. By following them, they're now turned to having civil wars too, trying to use the same techniques that Esau uses as far as divide and conquer, not realizing that they themselves are divided and conquered, and that any kingdom that's divided against itself, it's not going to stand. Let's get that one too, and then we'll keep going. Let's get the one in Matthew. Go to Matthew chapter 12. You can read that, Baba Kushan. Matthew 12 and just read 25.
And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand.
Come, there you go. There you have it. So they're evidence of that in the past, and they are evidence of this right now as we speak. First woe, second woe, which they call World War I, World War II, and the third woe, which is to come, right? Which will be another fight against themselves, Esau against Esau, right? You're going to have the Americans and the British and their allies on one side. You can have Russian and their allies on the other side. They're going to fight each other in the Third World War. And then in the midst of that, Christ is going to come back with his host to then fight with both of them. That's what the prophecy tells us. So, always just be mindful when you watch the news and check out current events, because sometimes they might try to, mislead as far as how things are happening or why things are happening, right? Usually they don't lie about who did what and where and when did they do it. Usually that's usually right. But how and why they did things, that's where usually the news gets it wrong. But now that's where the prophecy of the Most High comes in. We can see, all right, they may say it's happening for this reason, and here's where they think things are heading. But we got that sneak peek into the future, right? We got the sneak preview of how this movie is going to end. Let's read on in First Maccabees 11, verse 20 now. At the same time, Jonathan gathered together them that were in Judea to take the tower that was in Jerusalem. He made many engines of war against it. This daggone tower in Jerusalem, man. This thing is like been a thorn on our side, right? Back and forth. He didn't take it over. We take it back. Get the heathen out of there. Block them in there, starve them out. So this daggone tower. Then it says in 21, then certain ungodly persons who hated their own people, here come the sellouts again, right? What's your favorite verse, Kahan? About my people are found wicked men, right? Jeremiah 5:26, down to 28. So there it is, right? We see it here too. And we see it now in the modern era, right? You don't have to get it, but he's making a reference to Jeremiah 5:26. We always laugh because that's that's one of your favorites, right? Went unto the king and told him that Jonathan besieged the tower, right? So they're running and telling, right? Look at what he's doing. He's taking the tower back, right? Going to the current Demetrius who's in power now, right? Since Alexander and Ptolemy are now out the picture. 22, whereof when they heard, he was angered, immediately removing. He came to Ptolemais and wrote unto Jonathan that he should not lay siege to the tower, but come and speak with him at Ptolemais in great haste, right? He's saying, okay, look, let's try to work something out, right? Don't try to take over that tower, right? Come, let's sit down and let's talk, right? Nevertheless, Jonathan, when he heard this, commanded to besiege it still, and he chose certain of the elders of Israel and the priests, and put himself in peril or danger. He took silver and gold and raiment and diverse presents besides, and went to Ptolemais unto the king, where he found favor in his sight, right? So he said, okay, proceed as we originally planned. Let's go and sit down and see what they have to say, see what kind of offer they have, right? Because he was in favor with Alexander, right? So he said, okay, maybe we can get some kind of allyship with these guys, right? Even though Alexander's out the picture. Let's see what happens. And though certain ungodly men of the people, though certain ungodly men of the people had made complaints against him, yet the king treated him as his predecessors had done before, and promoted him in the sight of all his friends. Right? So for the sellouts, they didn't get what they wanted, right? And now Jonathan's being elevated, right? By those same Greek rulers that these sellouts tried to get favor with, right? Yet the king entreated him, 27, and confirmed him in the high priesthood and in all the honors that he had before, and gave him preeminence among his chief friends. Then Jonathan desired the king that he would make Judea free from tribute, as also the three governments with the country of Samaria. Right, going into how it was split in two, going way back to Solomon's time, but then there was a third government there as well. And we see this kind of the precursor to how Israel was set up by the time we get to the time of Christ, right? We had Judea in the south, you had Samaria in the north, and you had Galilee like in the middle. So the king consented and wrote letters to Jonathan, and all these after this manner. King Demetrius unto his brother Jonathan, and unto the nation of the Jews sendeth greeting, right? Going into this Demetrius II, right? Since his father's no more. We send you here a copy of the letter which we did write unto your cousin Lasthenes concerning you, that you might see it. King Demetrius unto his father Lasthenes sendeth greeting. We are determined to do good to the people of the Jews who are our friends, and keep covenants with us because of their goodwill towards us. Wherefore we have ratified unto them the borders of Judea, with the three governments of Ephraim and Lydda and Ramathaim, that are added unto Judea from the country of Samaria, and these things appertaining unto them for all such as do sacrifice in Jerusalem, instead of the payments which the king received of them yearly aforetime out of the fruits of the earth and of trees, right? So once again, he's leveraging this land and saying, look, we'll let you have this, right? And all those things, all the power that can come from those things, right? The different resources that could come from those lands. It says, and as for other things that belong unto us, and the tithes and customs pertaining unto us, and also the salt pits and the crown taxes, which are due unto us, we discharge them of them all for their relief, right? So tax breaks, right? Tax relief, tax abolishment, right? Tax exemption, right?
No taxes for 10 years.
So good news, right?
Yeah.
Good dealings. It says, and nothing thereof shall be revoked from this time forth forever. Now therefore see that thou make a copy of these things, and let it be delivered unto Jonathan, and set upon the holy mount in a conspicuous place, right? So, seal it, put it in on a table, right? This may be known as what we're going to do going forward. But, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see how long this lasts, because we know Esau's good for what? And they do this with each other, as we see here in history. They'll even do this to each other. They'll make agreements and then break it once they what? Want to get more. Like the elder was talking about last night in Habakkuk, right? They enlarge their desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. So if they deal with each other that way, you can only expect how they're going to deal with you as a Jew, right? Or as someone who's not of their people. Look how they deal with each other. After this, I'm in verse 38 now. After this, when King Demetrius saw that the land was quiet before him, and that no resistance was made against him. Remember, the scriptures tell us what? There shall be no peace unto the wicked. The best they can achieve is quiet, right? Remember the difference between peace and quiet, right? Real quick to link with 11 and 38. This is like a callback to when we read this in the beginning of Maccabees about Alexander. Go to first Maccabees real quick. Chapter 1 and verse 3. Read that real quick, Baba Kushan. And then we'll continue on in chapter 11. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 3.
First Maccabees 1 and 3. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
Right, going back to Alexander the Great, right, son of Philip the Macedonian, that Alexander, right? So we see that quiet, right? But now when we had rulership, you read about it saying what? And we'll see this as we go through the Maccabees. It'll say, every man sat under his vine tree and under his fig tree. That's different, right? But you'll never see that when it comes to the heathen taking power. It just will say quiet. It won't say peace. So remember the difference. And to show that, read these two verses too, Kahan Baba Kusha, and then we'll continue on. Read these two real quick in Isaiah. First, go to Isaiah 48 and verse 22. And after that, read 57 and 21. They both say the same thing. They should have called it, the Romans should have called it, how do you say in Latin, quiet? What they say, the Pax Romana, right? Those are the Roman peace. Really, they should have called it the Roman quiet.
Yeah, the church.
Yeah, because that's who they are. They're the Romans, right? The pontiff is the Pontifex Maximus. He's the high priest of Jupiter, not God in Christ. So don't forget who these guys are. Sorry, good.
Isaiah 48, verse 22. There is no peace, said the Lord, unto the wicked.
There you go. And then the 57 and 21 says the same thing. So let them talk peace.
Peace in the Middle East.
Exactly. Peace in Ukraine. Peace in Taiwan. 57 and 21, same book. Chapter 57 and verse 21.
There is, Isaiah 57, verse 21. There is no peace, said my God, to the wicked.
There you go. Can't happen. Now, we learned this lesson already when we had the rule, but now the heathen get to learn it themselves. Now they've been given their turn, their time to take dominion. But Isaac didn't lie to our brother Esau. He told him what? You shall break the yoke from off your neck that we put on them, and you shall have the dominion in the future. So now it's their time. But their time has to be fulfilled. So as they are on their fall, we now are on the rise. That's why, like it says in the New Testament, seeing these things shall be dissolved, referring to Esau's kingdom. What manner ought we to be in all holy conversation and godliness? Right? Because we don't want to be destroyed along with them. No, we want to take the reins of the power, the lands, the people, the lands that they live on, their resources, their money, right? That's going to be handed over to us. But now the key is to rule according to the law, because when the kingdom comes in, it's not going to be any more rise and fall of nations. It's going to be us in power, ruling and ruling continually. Why? because we're going to be following the Most High's law as a guideline. Because you'll see people that can't, right? What they'll do, they'll say, oh, okay, yeah, empires rise and fall. So you're saying, okay, you guys are going to be, next one, to come into power. You guys will fall too, just like you fell before. And it's like, no, it's not this time.
So when to reign, right? It's the Romans 8, verse 19. For the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of God.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, bring it up. Why'd you read that? When you got a link, you're not going to edify us? Come on, man.
I mean, for us to rule, like the whole earth and animals and trees and everything, waiting for us to rule, because you want to hear about deforestation, polluting the water and the air and the crops. We let the land rest for X amount of time, and then we won't have like these dust bowls. So working the animal to death, working the people to death, and we give people for every Sabbath, everybody's at rest, including the animals.
Okay, absolutely. Ruling according to justice, right? Righteous justice, to where the heathen we're gonna cut to a place where the heathen are gonna love the service. It's gonna see, wow, this is how things are supposed to be in the earth. They're gonna resist it first, though. They're not gonna like it at first, but then they'll see, oh, these guys know what they're doing. Oh man, unlike these other guys, But yeah, in Daniel it says, the kingdom shall not be given over to other people, right? So we look forward to those days. I'll get that real quick. I see you getting the link too. Let me get that real quick in Daniel. Let's see, Daniel, I think it's chapter 2. Is it further up? Maybe it's in chapter 7. I got the chapter wrong. Let me see. Oh, it was here. I'm looking right at it. Daniel chapter 2 in verse 44. Daniel 2 and 44, it says, and in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Right? So that's what we have to look forward to. So no more musical chairs, right? No more merry-go-round, right? No more games. Only the kingdom. Only productivity going forward in the kingdom. And like you mentioned, all those things, God, all the things that are part of that creation, right? All the power, right? It's not going to be misused, but it's going to be used according to righteousness. And we'll talk about that in the classes too. But you go into the law, there's laws that cover all those things, like you mentioned. How to not, how to prevent deforestation. There's laws that go into that. Which trees to cut down, which trees not to cut down. There's laws that go into how to not make animals extinct, right? As far as with any animal generation, when you go to hunt animals, right, that are lawful, to not take out the mother and the babies, right? So that what, when it comes to the next mating cycle, right, they can what, have more progeny, as opposed to taking out both generations, which we see with Esau. He'll hunt for sport, not for food, right? Clean animals and unclean animals, and then you'll see what, they become endangered species, right? Or if not for food, hunt them for their skins, right? And they become endangered, all because the Most High's law isn't being set up as a guideline for functioning. Which then goes into Romans 8:19, which you pulled. You know, the creation itself is like groaning under these heathen, right? Under Esau, and how they deal with the creation according to wickedness.
So even when they came over here, they killed a whole bunch of what's it, buffalo?
Mm-hmm. Bison
like
too.
Bison. It's like a heap of skulls, you know.
Mm-hmm. Not to say Gad was righteous, but at least Gad knew, okay, how to have some sort of balance with the creation, right? And yeah, they were dealing with idols too, but at least they like put proper respects when they would hunt an animal. They would say a certain prayer, you know, thank you for nourishing me with your meat, keeping me warm with your skin, you know. They at least had a certain balance with the creation. But it wasn't meant to last, because even with them, they might have had the law at first, but then they went away from it too, just like the other northern tribes.
But they killed just to eat, not for sport.
Mm-hmm. You probably seen the thing on they're talking about his movie just came out. I think it's on Hulu. It's a new Predator movie. You guys know, like the sci-fi movie Predator called Prey. We're set in the past with Gad going against the Predator. And you got some Esau. You got some French Esau up in there too. But it's interesting how they kind of set up the Predator movie, where they have them come to hunt, but in the trailer for the movie, it says like you just said, they hunt to live, right? And it says he lives to hunt, talking about the Predator, who's like this alien.
Is Predator or Avatar?
No, it's called it's the latest Predator movie, but it's called Prey.
Oh.
It's about because the first one came out in the '80s, right? With Carl Weathers and Schwarzenegger, like the '80s action stars were in it. That was the first one. But the latest one they just came out with, I think it's on Hulu. That's what they say in the beginning. They say they hunt to live, right? As far as Gad, they say it lives to hunt, talking about the Predator. That's kind of how they set up the trailer. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff in that movie. Interesting symbolisms in there. But yeah, it's supposed to be set in the Great Plains, like going into like North America. Like I'm not sure if it's in Canada or like in the Dakotas, but like kind of along that strip, because the territory kind of kept going up. There wasn't like a United States Canada divide at that point, because it was set in like the 1700s or the 16th century. But there's a scene where they show a bunch of buffalo that's laid out, with skinned and everything. So when you said that, made me think of that. I don't know. Is that coming out in the fall or the winter? Which we know is another sci-fi movie, but it's pretty much just it's a western, sci-fi western, right? It's quote unquote cowboys and Indians all over again, right? Just in space. You watch the movie, you see, the Na'vi, they're pretty much supposed to be, Gad and Reuben, right? But yeah, let's read on First Maccabees. Now we're in 39. First Maccabees 11 and 39. It says, moreover, there was one Tryphon, who had been at Alexander's part afore, who, seeing that all the hosts murmured against Demetrius, went to Simalcu the Arabian, that brought up Antiochus, the young son of Alexander, and lay sore upon him to deliver him this young Antiochus, that he might reign in his father's stead. He told him, therefore, all that Demetrius had done, and how his men of war were at enmity with him, and there he remained a long season. See that? So now we have another rising of another faction, right? That was in support of Alexander Belas, right? This Tryphon, who Alexander Belas, they say he was quote unquote illegitimate, but he was supposed to be the successor of the Antiochuses. But now he's got another person he's looking to set up, who another Antiochus after him, to be his replacement, right? And to go against this Demetrius the second, Nicator. And it says in verse 41, in the meantime, Jonathan sent unto King Demetrius that he would cast those of the tower out of Jerusalem. Okay, yeah, we have this peace, but I don't want these guys in this tower. And those also in the fortress, for they fought against Israel. So Demetrius sent unto Jonathan, saying, I will not only do this for thee and thy people, but I will greatly honor thee and thy nation if opportunity serve. So he said, okay, no problem, right? So I want you as an ally now. I'll take care of this tower for you. Now therefore thou shalt do well if thou send me men to help me, for all my forces are gone from me, right? So, yeah, we'll help you with this tower, but supply us with some of your soldiers too, right? It says, now therefore thou shalt do well if thou send me men to help me, for all my forces are gone from me. Upon this Jonathan sent him 3,000 strong men unto Antioch, and when they came to the king was very glad of their coming, right? So, give and take, right? That's how alliances work. This is how they're supposed to work. You supply me one thing, I supply you with something else, right? Howbeit, they that were of the city gathered themselves together unto the midst of the city, to a number of 120,000 men, and would have slain the king. Wherefore the king fled into the court, and they of the city kept the passage of the city and began to fight. So you got an ambush going on here, trying to take out this Demetrius. Let's see what's going on here. And the king called to the Jews for help, came unto him all at once, and dispersing themselves through the city, slew that day in the city to the number of 100,000. So that was quite an event. I mean, we just got a couple of verses here, but this is, quite a massacre here, right? That's a lot of soldiers, right? That's a serious war trying to overthrow the Seleucids here. Also, they set fire on the city and get many spoils that day, and delivered the king. So when they of the city saw that the Jews had got the city as they would, their courage was abated, wherefore they made supplication to the king and cried, saying, grant us peace and let the Jews cease from assaulting us and the city. So, if you got us on your side, we can do serious damage. We can help out. We can cause a lot of help and a lot of hurt at the same time, right? Even though we were a smaller force, look at all the damage that we did, right? To help out Demetrius from this ambush, right, from his own people. So once again, more example of the warring factions within Esau, right? That were jockeying for power, right? All evidence of what their eventual downfall in due time. Verse 51, with that they cast away their weapons and made peace, and the Jews were honored in the sight of the king and in the sight of all that were in his realm. They returned to Jerusalem having great spoils. King Demetrius sat on the throne of his kingdom, and the land was quiet before him. So there's that quiet again, right? The quiet is only temporary. Peace, true peace, is everlasting. Nevertheless, he dissembled in all that he ever spake, that and estranged himself from Jonathan, neither rewarded he him according to the benefits which he had received of him, but troubled him very sore. So we looked you out, man. We kept you. We saved you from your own people trying to ambush you, and now you want to come back and have a hard heart towards us and Jonathan, our leader? What's going on? Really? Is that how you do business?
Yeah, it's just like that time we going to help the heathen and fight their battles and stuff like that. Yeah, like we said, and then they're gonna come back at us.
Yeah, it's almost reminiscent of what we see in the Kings, in the Chronicles, right? Where you had, Judah in the south, Israel in the north. We were fighting each other. Yeah, Judah had an allegiance with Assyria to fight against Israel, and then Israel had an alliance with Syria to fight against Judah. So it's like, they're supposed to be the enemies, but they're our friends against our brother in warfare.
It's crazy. I'm surprised. I'm like,
I mean, it's not really surprising. I mean, even going back to Solomon's time, right? We had a trade agreement with the Hamites. It was a Hiram of Tyre, where they supplied us with the cedar wood. We supplied them with workers and with grain. Right? So you have that trade going on.
That's trade.
When you read it in Kings. But this is trade too. This is what it's all about as far as alliances for different purposes, not only for constructive purposes, but also in this case for destructive purposes, right? For peacetime and for wartime, apparently. But yeah, the key is during Solomon's time, for constructive, generative purposes. But in times of war, it's like, yeah, we're going to war. Yeah, we can help each other out. We need your help too for this. But this is totally crazy, right? Because it's like Jonathan has looked out for you. He sent resources that had delivered on their promise and then some to keep you in that throne. But now you want to have an evil eye towards Jonathan. What's going on?
Because even though World War One, World War Two, and some other wars, we were going to fight their battles and come back, lose man or not lose man, and so on and so forth. Or when Judah come back to the United States, they treat them like, treat the black veterans like crap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So-called black, right? Mm-hmm. Let me read 53 again. Nevertheless, he dissembled in all that he ever spake, and estranged himself from Jonathan. Neither rewarded he him according to the benefits which he had received of him, but troubled him very sore. After this returned Tryphon, and with him a young child Antiochus, who reigned and was crowned. Right. So this is the next Antiochus that he's setting up, which I think is this might be the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look here just to verify. Let's see. Successor. Let me go back to Alexander's article. So let's take a look here. Let me share this again real quick. So now usually on these charts, it'll show who the successors are over here, right? So this was Alexander Balas, the one that we read about that died, right? And that Ptolemy the Sixth, this guy, was the one who killed him, and then he died shortly afterward. And then Demetrius became the new power. So it says Demetrius II Nicator. This is the guy who took over. This is the guy that remained, who was the son of Demetrius I Soter. But then this is the Antiochus that he's talking about. Antiochus VI Dionysus. Oh, named after the Greek god of wine and reveling. How interesting. King of the Hellenistic Seleucid kingdom was the son of Alexander Balas and Cleopatra Thea, daughter of Ptolemy VI of Egypt. So more than likely, this is the Antiochus that is talking about. See here? Antiochus VI did not actually rule either already in 145 or 144 BC, was nominated by the general Deodatus Tryphon. This is the same Tryphon that we're reading about right now in Maccabees. See that? Nicknamed the Magnificent. As heir, you want to read that? As heir to the throne in opposition to Demetrius II, who's currently in power, who has an alliance with Jonathan right now, and remained the general's tool. Call him a tool. In 142, 141 BC, the young king died, while some ancient authors made Diodotus Tryphon responsible for the death of the king. Others write that he died during the surgery. So this is the Antiochus that Tryphon's trying to put forward, right, to come against Demetrius II. So here it is. Here's the history. You even got some coins here of these guys. You can see the money that they had and how they put their face on it, right?
Clean shaven.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go back to reading. But like I said, this is this I can really get caught up when you read these things. You can kind of go right here to the primary source, and they'll have the who came before and who came after, because the scriptures won't always necessarily mention what number they were, but it's talking about an actual figure in history. Right, when you go into the annals of the Greeks. All right, so let's go back. Let's continue on. First Maccabees chapter 11, and I'll read 54 again. After this returned Tryphon, and with him the young child Antiochus, who reigned and was crowned. Right, that's the sixth. What was his surname again? We just read it. Dionysus. Named after Dionysus, who the Romans, they adopted that god and they called him Bacchus. We read about festivals to Bacchus, right? So Bacchus is the same as Dionysus. Just the Greeks called him Dionysus, but then the Romans called him Bacchus. But he was the god of wine and of reveling, the god of good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trinidad is Bacchanal.
Oh, what's that?
Festival
See,
and parade.
So that's where that got the name. So that name, where does it come from?
Having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Orgy, sex, free.
Exactly. 55. And then there gathered unto him all the men of war who Demetrius had put away, and they fought against Demetrius, who turned his back and fled. Moreover, Tryphon took the elephants and won Antioch. Remember, he's set up over there in Asia, right? Like we read, he had not only power over there in Syria, but also going further into the east, to where, remember, they took over the Persians and the Medes, so they had their armaments and had their elephants, which they used for warfare, and adopted them in their own warfare. At the time, young Antiochus wrote unto Jonathan, saying, I confirm thee in the high priesthood and appoint thee ruler over the four governments, and to be one of the king's friends. So this Antiochus the sixth is saying, yeah, Jonathan, no problem. We got you. Just like Alexander Balas, that was the ruler before. You got my support too. Upon this, he sent him golden vessels to be served in, and gave him leave to drink in gold, and to be clothed in purple, and to wear a golden buckle. Right? It's kind of makes you think of what was it, Daniel, right? Daniel revealed that vision and what the breakdown of the vision was, right? And it says, just to show favor towards Daniel and the Babylonian government, he gave them these, what do you call it? These different adornments. At least I can get that real quick. It's very reminiscent of that. I wasn't even thinking about that before, but it just kind of came to mind. So as today they'll refer to as, ice. He's iced out, right? So Daniel chapter 5, as they say, the writing on the wall. That's where this phrase comes from, right? This is history here in Daniel. And you hear people use that now. That's where it comes from. So it says in Daniel 5 and 7, the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, going back to the Babylonians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said unto the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof, shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck. Right? See that? A gold chain. And shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Right? So jumping down to verse 16, it says, I have heard of thee that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts, talking to Daniel. And if thou canst read the writing and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. And then you jump down furthermore, he's able to break down the the mene tekel upharsin, what it meant. You know, you've been numbered, you've been weighed in the balance and found wanting or lacking. And then finally, that's the mene tekel, and then the Perez, or the upharsin, which is Perez. Kingdom has been divided, given to the Medes and Persians. But then it says in 29, then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him. He should be the third ruler in the kingdom. See that? So he was able to win the contest, if you will, that they put out there to say, who can break down his interpretation? So we see these generous gifts being given, right, as like a token of gratitude, if you will. We see it here during this time too, with Jonathan and his dealings with the Greeks, who were the top empire. Anyway, back at First Maccabees, I'll read 58 again. It says, upon this, he sent him gold vessels to be served in, and gave him leave to drink in gold and be clothed in purple, and to wear a golden buckle, right? It's got a golden chain, but the buckle is being, because, of course, you know, where your girdle is, or your midsection. His brother Simon also he made captain from the place called the Ladder of Tyrus unto the borders of Egypt. So now he said he's even setting up his brother Simon too, approving his position and rulership also, which we know it's the Greeks doing it, but ultimately it's the Most High doing it for Jonathan and Simon's righteousness' sake, right? Because, yeah, they're the top empire, the Greeks. But the Most High can easily have the Greeks work, or the heathen work in our favor, as long as we're doing the right thing, which is what Judas was doing. And we see Jonathan now, and now Simon's coming into the picture too. It says in verse 60, then Jonathan went forth and passed through the cities beyond the water, and all the forces of Syria gathered themselves unto him for to help him. And when he came to Ascalon, there the city met him honorably, from whence he went to Gaza. But they of Gaza shut him out. Wherefore he laid siege upon it, unto it, and burned the suburbs thereof with fire, and spoiled thereof. Afterward, when they of Gaza made supplication unto Jonathan, he made peace with them, and took the sons of the chief men for hostages, and sent them to Jerusalem, and passed through the country unto Damascus. Right? Now he's taking a trip, and where he goes, you know, if you proclaim peace, okay, we'll respond with that peace. But then you try to act up or act out, we're going to bring war to you. As we see, as he's going throughout the Judah and going southward. It says, remember, Syria was below Israel. You look on the map. Now, when Jonathan heard Demetrius' princes were come to, I'm sorry, it was northward. Now, when Jonathan heard that Demetrius' princes were come to Cadus, which is in Galilee, the great power, which is in Galilee, with the, sorry, I keep reading the same line twice, purposing to remove him out of the country. He went, so this is going into, once again, Demetrius II, who was supposed to be his buddy. They're supposed to be, you know, on good terms. He looked him out, made sure he didn't get overthrown, but now he's got an evil eye toward him. Right. He went to meet them and left Simon, his brother, in the country. since you mentioned that, let's get that. Even though this was for another Edomite, we see that they follow suit. Let's get this real quick in the Psalms. Psalms 52, I believe it is. We'll come back to this probably next Sabbath service, right? This psalm, because this psalm is actually written specifically for a certain Edomite. But you've seen one, you've seen them all. They all have a similar trait when it comes to this. If we go back to 1 Samuel's 22 and read on, we're going to see this psalm come into play. This is Psalms 52. It's a short psalm. If you could read that real quick. And we'll go back to 1 Maccabees 11 and continue on. So if you can read that, Baba Kashai, Psalms 52. Whole thing. This dealing with Saul's herdsman, Doeg, the Edomite, an enemy of Israel. I think in the Hebrew it's Doeg. If I'm not mistaken, look it up. But don't quote me on that.
Psalm 52. Why boastest thou thyself in mischief?
Do you have the intro though?
Psalm 52 to the chief musician Maskil, a psalm of David when Doeg the Edomite came and told Saul and said unto him, David is come to the house of Ahimelech.
Mm-hmm.
Why boastest thou thyself in mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endureth continually. The tongue devises mischiefs like a sharp razor working deceitfully. Thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteousness. Selah. Thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. God shall likewise destroy thee forever. He shall take thee away and pluck thee out of thy dwelling place, and root thee out of the land of the living. Selah. The righteous also shall see and fear, and shall laugh at him. Lo, this is the man that made not God his strength, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and strengthened himself in his wickedness. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever. I will praise thee forever, because thou hast done it, and I will wait on thy name, for it is good before thy saints.
So there you go. So we have the context behind who wrote this and who wrote it for. We can also see how we can expand that broadly, where that could be directed to a whole bunch of Edomites, not just Doeg. We even see it even being applied here in this time of the Maccabees. But we'll probably come back to that song next week when we go to back to 1 Samuel's. Because we read that story, you see what he did when it came to telling on David who was on the run, right? And then we saw Saul give a certain command, right, to do something that was horrible, right? And it tells you that Saul's servants wouldn't even do it. I won't go into it. I don't want to spoil it, but the servants wouldn't do it. They said, "Oh, we can't do that, right? I know you're our king, but that's horrible." But now Doeg, he didn't hesitate. He went ahead and did the horrible thing that Saul had commanded. Went right ahead and did it. So, like I said, when we go back to Samuel, we'll see exactly what he did. That even Saul's men, were afraid to do out of fear of God. So it just shows you, even though we might have dominion, the nations will be the nations. Even if we have them as servants and handmaids, you got to keep an eye on them. right? Because they'll say and do the worst. So First Maccabees chapter 1 again. Water for reading that. Let's read on in verse 64. He went to meet them and left Simon his brother in the country. Then Simon encamped against Bethsura and fought against it a long season and shut it up. They desired to have peace with him, which he granted them, and he put them out from thence and took the city and set a garrison on it. After Jonathan and his hosts, they pitched at the water of Gennesar, from whence betimes in the morning they gat them to the plain of Nassau, and behold, the host of the strangers met them in the plain, who having laid men in ambush for him in the mountains, came themselves over against them. So when they that lay in ambush rose out of their places and joined battle, all that were of Jonathan's side fled, insomuch that there was not one of them left, except Mattathias the son of Absalom and Judas the son of Calpe, the captains of the host. So we see they laid an ambush for him, and now they're at a disadvantage at this point. Let's see what happens. Then Jonathan rent his clothes and cast earth upon his head and prayed. Afterward, turning again to battle, he put them to flight, and so they ran away. Now, when his own men that were fled saw this, they turned again unto him, and with him pursued them to Cadiz, even unto their own tents, and there they camped. So there were slain of the heathen that day about 3,000 men. But Jonathan returned to Jerusalem. Right? So, when in the dire strait, even when it comes to your own countrymen leaving you aside or abandoning you, right? You still want to go to the Most High, because your hope is that the Most High ultimately will have your back. And he can change the hearts and minds, not only of the heathen to make them afraid, but even the hearts of the minds of your brothers who may have been afraid, but now to encourage them to now fight on your behalf, right? So we want to make sure that Most High is our ultimate lifeline, right? Anything that we pursue and try to do. But it can be hard sometimes when you're in a tight spot. You feel like, even though it's not true, you feel like the Most High is not there, or that he's going to leave you over to destruction. But now this is First Maccabees 12 now. First Maccabees 12 and 1. Let's keep rolling. It says, now when Jonathan saw that the time served him, he chose certain men and sent them to Rome for to confirm and to renew the friendship that they had with them. He sent letters unto the Lacedaemonians and to other places for the same purpose. He's reaching out, communicating, establishing leagues, right, to strengthen himself again, right? It says, so they went to Rome and entered into the Senate and said, so remember the Romans, right? They weren't the top empire, but they were the up and coming, right? And it says they had a Senate going into that government style. So when we see the Senate today, we know that goes back to the Romans, because Esau today is the Romans of old time. Right, exactly. But the same government structure. Like we always say, look at how not only just the governments you see here in America, even you go to Europe, to Britain, the Kingdom of Great Britain, and all those countries that are there, the French, the Spanish, you see the courthouses, they got the pillars, right? They got a similar government structure. Here in America, they got the Senate and the reps. Over there in the UK, they got the Lords, the House of the Lords and the House of Commons. It's a similar dynamic, right? Because in Rome, you had the same setup. We had the patricians and the plebeians, right? And then the patricians were like the ruling class, the landowners, and the plebes were like the like the blue collar, if you will, the craftsmen, the artisans, and the craftsmen. And you had different representatives for those groups. You had the Senate or senators represented, the wealthier. And you had what they called the tribunes. There were people they were like the representatives here in America. They had the tribunes who were appointed over the blue collar, more working class, as opposed to the white collar, upper crust landowner types. So you see that same dynamic here in the modern day in the United States, in the UK, other places. Like I said, here you got the Senate and the reps. In the UK, you got the Lords, the House of the Lords, and the House of the Commons. You see the House of the Commons more like on C-SPAN sometimes. They have like their meetings about, different issues. But you don't really see the House of the Lords too much, at least televised. I know they have their meetings too.
Australia.
Right, similar government style in all the Commonwealth countries, right?
Yeah,
I'm just talking about the United States and the UK as like the preeminent when it comes to that. Them taking or adopting the Roman structure, which then they got their structure from the Greeks. What were you about to say?
No, I said Australia because I know they're over there too.
Mm-hmm.
As big figures.
Right. Them even being a slave colony at one point, right? Or a colony where they sent criminals to. That in New Zealand and then the others. I know the videos we were sharing back and forth. A lot of those track and field races, they were coming from what they're doing. I think they stopped not too long ago, but they had what they call the Commonwealth Games. That's what they were having going on. But you had it's funny because the United States was in there, I think, a little bit too. It's kind of ironic, right? Because it's supposed to be, independent. But it was all the Commonwealth countries competing against each other. And you had Australia in there, you had Canada in there, you had of course the UK, Great Britain up in there, you had Australia up in there, you had Nigeria in there, like all different countries that are subject to Her Majesty. When you go to their country, look at their money, you see the Queen's face on it. They all had like a game. They had games. They were competing, just like the Greeks and the Romans did. I guess it was specifically focused on those countries, running races, throwing javelin, shot put, long jump, and everything else. So yeah, we're in First Maccabees 12. I'll read 3 again. So they went to Rome and entered into the Senate and said, Jonathan the high priest and the people of the Jews sent us unto you to the end that you should renew the friendship which you had with them and league as in former time, right? So you see that league, right? Like we have even today. The League of Nations after World War I, right? The United Nations after World War II, but serving that same purpose, right? To be that prophecy John saw, the whore that rides on top of the scarlet-colored beast. Reading 1 in verse 4, it says, upon this the Romans gave them letters unto the governors of every place that they should bring them into the land of Judea peaceably. And this is the copy of the letters which Jonathan wrote unto the Lacedaemonians. Jonathan, high priest, and the elders of the nation, and the priests, and the other people of the Jews, unto the Lacedaemonians their brethren, send greeting. There were letters sent in times past unto Onias the high priest from Darius, who reigned then among you, to signify that you are our brethren, as the copy here underwritten doth specify. Right, it's going to this other Hebrew family, right, that we knew about, and then also making reference in history to Onias, a high priest, who was a high priest going back to before Mattathias, right? We do the history on him. It says, at which time Onias entreated the ambassador that was sent honorably and received the letters wherein declaration was made of the league and friendship. It says, hold on. Wherefore we also, albeit we need none of these things, for that we had the holy books of Scripture in our hands to comfort us, have nevertheless attempted to send unto you for the renewing of brotherhood and friendship, lest we should become strangers unto you altogether. For there is a long time past since you sent unto us. We therefore at all times without ceasing, both in our feasts and other convenient days, do remember you in the sacrifice which we offer, in our prayers, as reason is, and as it becometh us to think upon our brethren. And we are right glad of your honor. So trying to reestablish that connection, that friendship that they had, as it's been a while since they had spoken. So Jonathan, being wise, thinking about not only the present situation, but also thinking about the future as well, want to make sure, they had all hands on deck so that there wasn't, what do you call it? There wouldn't be any type of, betrayal, or, the Greeks maybe appealing to them to say, hey, be our friends against Jonathan, right? So it's like, let me get all hands on deck and try to make the most of all of our connections that we have. And now reading on, it says, really well. I'll start from 13, I guess. As for ourselves, we have had great troubles and wars on every side, forasmuch as the kings that are round about us have fought against us. Howbeit, we would not be troublesome unto you, nor to others of our confederates and friends in these wars. For we have help from heaven that succoureth us. So as we are delivered from our enemies, and our enemies are brought under foot, for this cause we chose Nemenius, the son of Antiochus, and Antipater, the son of Jason, and sent them unto the Romans to renew the enmity that we had with them and the former league. We command them also to go unto you and to salute you, and to deliver you our letters concerning the renewing of our brotherhood. Wherefore we now ye shall do well to give us an answer thereto. So that was the letter they sent them. And when you go into history, like we've been kind of touching on history back and forth. You go into, I'll try to read this real quick too. It's pretty much going to touch on the same things, but might be some other details here that we don't see here. But like I said, just another secondary reference, not the Bible, but a secondary reference. This is a history book, the Josephus, in book 13 in chapter 8, going into the same history. It mentions here, Jonathan, having thus gotten a glorious victory, slaying 2,000 of the enemy, returned to Jerusalem. So when he saw all his affairs prospered according to his mind, by the providence of God, he sent ambassadors to the Romans, having desires of renewing their friendship, which their nation had had with them formerly. He enjoined the same ambassadors that as they came back, they should go to the Spartans and put them in mind of their friendship and kindred. So when the ambassadors came to Rome, they went into their senate and said what they were commanded by Jonathan, their high priest, to say, how he had sent them to confirm their friendship. The Senate then confirmed what had been formerly decreed concerning their friendship with the Jews, and gave them letters to carry to all the kings of Asia and Europe, and to the governors of the cities, that they might safely conduct them to their own country. Accordingly, as they returned, they came to Sparta and delivered the epistle which they had received of Jonathan of them. A copy of which here follows. Then it goes into the whole letter, and it mentions the Lacedaemonians, which they lived in that region. And I think you have some brothers that do the history, trying to go into, depending what generation you talk about, you had some of us that were in that country too, that were warriors also, just like the Spartans we hear about from before time, right? You had us that were there also, which wouldn't be surprising. Just like in Egypt, you had our people there too, right? Even the brothers who wrote Ecclesiasticus, they were Israel that were living in Egypt under the Ptolemies. Namely, when you read in the preface of Ecclesiasticus, it mentions Euergetes, who that was Ptolemy III. So that was a little bit before this time here in the Maccabees, a couple hundred years before that. Is there anything else here that's useful? I think everything else here pretty much is what we already saw here in this letter. Then it says at the end, so the Lacedaemonians received the ambassadors kindly and made a decree for friendship and mutual assistance and sent it to them. So history will back up the scriptures. Anytime it doesn't, you have to question it and go, okay, well, allegedly, perhaps this did happen, maybe it didn't, but all we can really say for sure is what the scriptures speak on. But let me read on here since we finished that letter. It says now in verse 19, this is 1 Maccabees 12 and 19. And this is the copy of the letters which Omeares sent. Arius, king of the Lacedaemonians, to Onias the high priest, greeting. It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are the stock of Abraham. Now, therefore, since this has come to our knowledge, you shall do well to write unto us of your prosperity. We do write back again to you that your cattle and goods are ours, and ours are yours. We do command, therefore, our ambassadors to make report unto you on this wise, right? So they're responding in the affirmative, saying, yours is ours and ours is yours, right? We have an alliance. I think you were touching on that a couple, was it classes ago, about the whole NATO thing that they had today, where part of that agreement is, look, if anybody goes to war with you, it's like they're going to war with us. So part of the perks of the whole NATO alliance is to say, we have a united front, right? You attack one of us, you attack all of us. So it's the same idea, same concept. When it comes to warfare, when it comes to peace times, when it comes to destructive means, when it comes to constructive means, our resource are like your resource. We'll help you, you help us. Anytime, we have a common threat. I think we watched Elam has his news station called Wyon News. He had an interesting article or a program where they were going into even how Ishmael, they're trying to do something similar amongst the different Ishmaelite countries in the Middle East, from the Saudis to the folks in Kuwait to Yemen, and they're trying to bring together their forces too, to be like a united front against Iran, of all people. But West is it. They rather have Esau as their friend against Iran, right? Because they're a little concerned because Esau's trying to back away from them, the British and the Americans especially. That's supposed to be the arrangement. Ishmael, especially the Saudis, they supply the United States with the oil, but then they get the technology and weapons and the military support for the United States. But now the United States is kind of like, backing away from them. They're like, oh man, we got to figure out something. So even though we got beef amongst each other, because Ishmael doesn't necessarily get along like that. They get along better than most, but they still have their issues. They said, let's see if we can come together and try to formulate a force together to try to be, counterbalance in case the United States wants to jump ship or, Iran decides to, go extra with it. At least we have our forces combined, because Iran is no joke. They were going to tell, they got they combine all their forces. They got between 600 to 800 soldiers all together. And they got nuclear weapons. So it's like, and the Saudis by themselves, they're easily overthrown. And even them combining all their forces with all those different Arab countries, this article was going into it, they still are just barely neck and neck with, the force that Iran presents. And not only is Iran strong, Iran has a strong ally in Russia, just like the prophecy, like it says in Isaiah, right? He lifted up the spirit of the king of the Medes for his devices against Babylon to destroy it, talking about America and the West. So, everyone's trying to scramble and see, who could be my friend. We got to come together, get past our differences, because we got a stronger enemy that might, you try to, hang us out. They try to attack us, try to hurt us through hurting our trade. We got to do something. So these things written before time can definitely be something we meditate on and go, all right, so what are we looking at today? Because it's the same types of moves being made for the same intent and for the same reason. Mm-hmm. So it says, reading on, I think I'm in 24. It says, now when Jonathan heard that Demetrius princes, this is going to, again, back to Demetrius, the one who, in the last chapter, we saved his hide, but now he's got an evil eye towards us, right? Huh?
Right?
Yeah.
I thought I said that. I thought I heard the BBS.
I got the Kings, the 1611. Let me see if this one, the spelling sometimes is different here in the 1611 than it is here. Let me see what it says in this one. What are you saying? It's saying it's spelled how in this one?
BBNEBIUS.
12 and 24. No, it says Demetrius here too. Oh, you got the electronic one? Gotta highlight that. The electronic one sometimes be dropping the ball, man. Look, sometimes this will be spelled a little bit different than this will be spelled. The spelling will be different from this apocrypha than the apocrypha that's in here, because I have like the old letter S. It's like an F without the slash in the middle. So their online one is a little funky. You need to clean that one up.
So it says Demetrius.
Mm-hmm. It says it in here too. Oops. Now I want to look it up on the KJVA app. Let me see what it says here now. Hold on. Let me see if it's right. If it's right here too. 11 and 24 again. No, 12. 12 and 24. 13. It says Demetrius here too. How's it spelled in yours again?
Demebius.
Let me search that real quick. Hold on. Yeah, it must be a typo in the electronic version. But yeah. Reading on, it says Demetrius' princes were come to fight against him with a greater host than afore. Verse 25, he removed from Jerusalem. Let me just write this on the notes. Just when I have this, I can look that up later to see if that comes up anywhere else. From 12 to 24. Demebius. He removed from Jerusalem and met them in the land of Apphus, for he gave them no respite to enter his country. He sent spies also unto their tents, who came again and told him that they were appointed to come upon them in the night season. So Esau attacking by night, right? Not far off. I know they had a movie about that when they allegedly finally got Osama bin Laden. They had a movie, Zero Dark 30. Right? Zero Dark 30 is like saying like midnight, 12:30 a.m. when they sprung the trap on him in Pakistan. Then it was like you had the lady. She was the ex-president, I think, of Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. You guys remember when they were talking about her back in the day, Benazir Bhutto? I'm not sure I'm saying her name right.
Yeah, when they killed her.
Remember her, right?
Yeah, when they killed her.
She was saying a lot of stuff. She was saying stuff about 9/11. She was saying stuff about, why are they still saying they're looking for him? It was like after, it was like in the mid to late 2000s. She's like, why are they saying they're still looking for him? They got him already. She said this like way before when they sprung the trap on him, during that time. Because I think when they attacked, they caught him in Pakistan. That was what, in 2011, 2012? I forget what year it was. It was after when she said that. She was saying that they'd already got him. And like a month or so later, she dies of like mysterious cause. I'm like, who can you trust? Who can you trust? Who do you believe?
Anybody with some basic research and follow the story and know the playbook of Babylon, they already know they're lying. Because even after they quote unquote caught him, we threw his body in the ocean.
All the evidence, right? So we can't do an autopsy or nothing, right?
Exactly. We threw his body in the ocean. Nah. wherever they kill in that house, it wasn't.
So a picture right there.
Yeah, every time you show a picture, the guys just getting younger and younger.
Right, exactly.
In the picture, they show him, they show him that was in that house, back of his head, watching CNN or something like that. It was just like, it was so funny. And you couldn't even see his face. And it was just like, man.
So the movie, based on the actual events, came out in 2013, but the actual event, I think, took place in the early 2010s. Let me see what year it was. It's in here. Hold on, let me pull it up differently. Let me put in Osama bin Laden, Pakistan. I'll probably get it that way. Another movie, SEAL Team 6, The Raid on Osama bin Laden. They got another movie along with the Zero Dark 30.
Nothing more but propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Oh! Here we go. And check out the date too. This this is dealing with that wickedness Esau be into. It says this is according to history. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind. I'll just share it with you guys real quick so you guys can see it, and we'll keep going with the service. Hold on one second. Yo, these guys don't change, man. From then till now, man. See, same devil, different day. Who knows? It might actually be the same devil, right? You do the regeneration, right? You guys can see this, right? Okay, I'm sharing it. So it says, I can only go down but so far because otherwise it's going to try to get me to try to subscribe. I don't want to subscribe. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, mastermind, in the United States, is killed by U.S. forces during a raid on his compound hideout in Pakistan. The notorious 54-year-old leader of the Al-Qaeda terrorist network of Islamic extremists had been the target of a nearly decade-long international manhunt. The raid began around 1 a.m. local time. Attack at night. Or they say 0 dark 30. But look at the date. May 1st, 2011. 10 years later, May 1st. That's what they call May Day. But people who study the occult and witchcraft, that's what they call Beltane. Or Beltane. It's kind of like the left-hand pass version of the Passover. It's like a high day for them. They do a lot of sacrifices. I won't go into what kind, right? Like might lose your lunch. Anyway, it says in the United States, when 23 U.S. Navy SEALs and 2 Black Hawk helicopters descended on a compound in Abbottabad, a tourist and military center north of Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. One of the helicopters crash landed into the compound, but no one aboard was hurt. During the raid, which lasted about 40 minutes, 5 people, including bin Laden and one of his adult sons, were killed by U.S. gunfire. No Americans are injured in the assault. After bin Laden's body was thrown by helicopter to Afghanistan for official identification and buried at an undisclosed location in the Arabian Sea, 24 hours after his death, which you were talking about.
Undisclosed location.
Who gets buried in the sea? Really? Less than 24 hours. You get dropped in the sea.
How you get buried?
You get sleep to the fish. You get slept with the fishes, right? Or like, what was the Black Panther? What did he say? He said, "Nah, leave me in the ocean so I could die with my ancestors." Remember, Killmonger said that, right? He said, "I would rather have freedom than bondage. Let me die with my ancestors that died on the transatlantic slave trade." Then it says, less than 24 hours after his death, in accordance with Islamic practice. My bad. That's why they did that.
I never heard of that.
something to look into, right? Then it says, I'll read this last paragraph. We'll keep going. Just after 11:30 p.m. on May 1st, Pakistan's time zone is 9 hours ahead of Washington, D.C. President Barack Obama, who monitored the raid in real time via footage shot by a drone high above Abbottabad, made a televised address from the White House announcing bin Laden's death. 2011, right before election time. We always get certain victories, right? Or certain accomplishments, right? Right around election time. He was running against what's the dude? Romney, remember? You always get victories right around that time, right? So everybody can say, "Yeah, he got bin Laden, he got Osama. Go Obama, he got him. I'm voting for you again." So, the Benazir Bhutto of Jordan, her talking about that back in the mid 2000s, that's got to be a problem. They probably said, "Oh no, we're gonna keep this and make it convenient around this time to catch him." Right? We can't have her say putting out even if he was still alive. Let's say he was. They can't have her putting stuff like that out. So they already caught him, years ago. Then he couldn't use it as a ploy to say, "Oh, we got him."
They caught him and killed him. They said back like in the 90s, the late 90s or something like that. They already caught him already. He was just a boogeyman. Just use his name every time for some reason. Back then, social media wasn't what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And every couple of years or so, the FBI will put out a video
Right.
of him telling them what he's gonna do.
Right. And that footage we were watching in 2001,
Right.
like you said, that's true. That could have been footage from, like you said, years ago.
Yeah, and they were just recycle it to the point that even when they got actors, some of the footage that they'll put out, they were Hollywood actors that just they even
crisis actors
did some of that in that Iron Man movie.
Oh, right.
That dude was pretending to be this big terrorist, but he was just and
right.
And Iron Man went and found him. He's like, "Yo, this is an actor."
Right. Right.
And he kind of looked like Osama.
Right.
Same kind of long beard.
Right.
Drug guy,
Because the way they set up at the beginning of the movie, it was like, "Oh, he's the new Iron Man bad guy." So he's like, "You guys have," he had that funny voice, right? He's like, "You guys have rained terror on everyone else. Now it's time for for it to come back to you." It's like, "Oh, he's the new bad guy." Yeah, see, they told you. And then the real bad guy, the scientist dude, right? That he left hanging in, like on so-called New Year's. He even said that in the movie. I remember he was like, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he's like, I realized that, the idea is to create the terrorist, create the idea of the terrorist, right? That's the one that you want to have in the forefront, not myself. I create the puppet that I can have everybody be mad at, so to speak.
Right.
I forget how he said it exactly, but in the movie, pretty much letting you know, like, this is like a technique. So it's like, this is a technique in the movie. Have they been using this? And it kind of goes to what we always talk about with the...
No, it's a technique in real life that they use in the movie.
That's what I mean. And I think we were talking about that before, too, the whole, like, it's part of their ritual to, like, they have to tell you what they're going to do.
Before they do it.
Right. And it's like, let the few shepherds amongst the sheep decipher what's actually going on. Like may the strongest survive, or may the strongest see what the plan actually is, because we know the majority of folks are going to drink the Kool-Aid, hook, line, and sinker. They're going to go along with what we tell them. But they always expect a certain amount of folks to wake up to their lives, and there's levels to waking up to that lie, which with us, we know the ultimate truth. You got their people as well as our people, other people that know the truth about the lie, but still know the truth about, what's really going on, who's really in control. But yeah, I think I'll read this last part and then we'll go back. But it says, made a televised address in White House, and justice has been done. Cheering crowds gathered outside the White House, New York Times. The ground zero site. Yeah, so and it goes on. But I'll just stop there. But so that's the official story. But look at even the way the when they did it. Even when they did it is like suspect. You know what I mean? Tell you, man. You look at these guys are like they pretty much take the scriptures and just corrupt it. The same way we do things at certain times for righteousness, the holy days. They got their own wicked holy days or hella days where they do rituals and certain things in the media to garner attention for what they're trying to do. It's like a totally like taking the scriptures and the righteousness of the priests and the prophets, and they flip it upside down with their, Illuminati and their Rosicrucians and their, other groups that they have. But let's continue on. Let's see in the chat. Was it an international manhunt or just an American manhunt? It's a good question. Well, what America says, right? The nations do. So maybe both, right? I think that's the elder. I think that's his channel. This Elder Zaquan, I think that's his channel, The Righteous Kingdom.
Yeah.
The Righteous Kingdom, I think it's him. But now, reading on in verse 25, back in 1 Maccabees 12. But Thawar, for humoring us on that tangent that we went on real quick about the attacking by night to show how they that's Esau's calling card from then till now. It says, met them in the land of Apphus, for he gave them no respite to enter his country. He sent spies also into their tents, who came again and told them they were appointed to come upon them in the night season. There we go. Verse 27. Therefore, so soon as the sun was down, Jonathan commanded his men to watch and to be in arms. Right? So they don't get caught by surprise at night, because they did this to our brother, our brother Judas before, try to attack at night. That's what they do. So had his watchmen out working the night watches to make sure they don't get ambushed. That all the night long they might be ready to fight. Also, he sent forth sentinels round about the host. But when the adversaries heard that Jonathan and his men were ready for battle, they feared, and trembling in their hearts, and they kindled fires in their camp. So they changed the tactics to say, okay, let's just show them that we're here, because they're already waiting for a surprise attack. Because in warfare, and Esau definitely knows this, right? Living by the sword. And pretty much any people that go to war, the element of surprise is key. Even for us in righteousness. What's the scripture say? He's going to come like a thief in the night. A thief comes at night when you least expect it, right? When your guard's down, when you're asleep.
But that doesn't say that. I don't think that particular scripture necessarily means he's coming at night. It just means he's coming. When he's gonna come, everybody's gonna be unaware. It's like a surprise.
Oh, that's the point I'm making.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Saying he's gonna be at night.
No. I'm just using it as a metaphor, because it is a metaphor, but the whole thing is to catch you by surprise.
Right.
Now, could it be at night? And in warfare, sure, it could be during daytime. But the whole point is to surprise you. And we know we have Israel that employs the surprise also, like Simeon and Levi, right? What they said, oh, you took our sister Dinah by force, talking to Shechem, right? And then they said, you want to have her for a wife, no problem. Just make sure you do what we do. Circumcise your foreskin, you Hamites. Then we can sit down and do all that. And then they did it. It says the men were still sore after getting, circumcised. It says Simeon and Levi went to town on the whole village, killed Shechem and all his people. And there's a story too. I remember before he was Nathaniel, now he's Nathaniel, but Nathaniel, when the 12 tribes break down, he brought out that history book, the Black Indians, or William Lorenz Cats. They have a story, and they're talking about in the island of Hispaniola, right, where they were, they were setting up shop down there, the Spanish and stuff, they had a similar thing where they had the natives, the indigenous folk, as well as the slave they brought, which was Levi. They had like some kind of Christmas party on the plantation down there and stuff. And they said after they had drunken a lot of rum and eaten a bunch of food and stuff, it says that the slaves down there as well as the indigenous peoples combined forces and laid slaughter to one of the plantations down there. And that they were bringing out the history where, like, they said, look at this. This story sounds very similar to what Simeon and Levi, the men, did during the time of Genesis. They had a similar rebellion down in Hispaniola in the same fashion, where they waited for them to eat, to eat and be drunk and to be, relaxed. And then you surprised against them and got them. So it was like an interesting parallel when you look at that history. But it's in that history book called Black Indians by William Lorenz Katz. It's almost like an echo in history, where Simeon and Levi team up and do the worst against the heathen. But back at First Maccabees, chapter 12, it says, keep losing my spot. 29. Howbeit Jonathan and his company knew it not till the morning, for they saw the lights burning. Then Jonathan pursued after them, but overtook them not, for they were gone over the river Euphrates, which is the same we read about in the last chapter. Wherefore Jonathan turned to the Arabians, who were called Zabadeans, or in the side caption you'll see Nabathans or Zabathans, spelled sometimes different, and smote them and took their spoils. So they made it worthwhile, them being out there in a military encampment. They said, well, we're going to get something out of this day of battle. So let's take them out, because, these guys were, a problem for anybody. We read in the last chapter, they're the ones that sold out Alexander Ballast to Ptolemy, right? Cut off his head and sent him back. I didn't even think about that. In chapter 11, when he talked about they beheaded Alexander Ballast, the Greek leader, the Arabians, because he thought he could go there for protection against Ptolemy the Sixth. Ishmael, during the whole rise of terrorism, what they always talk about, Ishmael doing beheadings, right? They got footage on a dark web, right? Or certain, restricted websites. They got footage of them doing beheadings, right? Righteous kills. They say, it's what'll happen to you, you don't do this, you don't do that, right? So, true to form, let's say about Ishmael in Genesis 16 and 12, say he'll be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, right? So they just fulfilling that prophecy for them. But Jonathan didn't, he didn't take them, take them for granted as being a threat. So he said, let's take them out and get their spoils. He says, in removing thence, he came to Damascus, which is Syria's capital, and so passed through all the country. Simon also went forth and passed through the country unto Ascalon, and the holds there adjoining, from whence he turned aside to Joppa, and won it, which is on the west bank again. For he had heard they would deliver the whole unto them that took Demetrius' part, wherefore he set a garrison there to keep it. After this came Jonathan home again, and called the elders of the people together. He consulted with them about building strongholds in Judea, and making walls of Jerusalem higher, and raising a great mount between the tower and the city, which separated from the city, so that it might be alone, that men might neither sell nor buy in it. Right? So totally cut that, isolate that tower off, because Demetrius that was supposed to be his end of the bargain, right? Oh yeah, I'll take care of that tower for you. Just make sure you help us out with this. And then before he could deliver on his side of the bargain, he went ahead and betrayed Jonathan. We read about that last chapter, right? So this tower is still here with these heathen. But all in all, not unmanageable. Just make sure nobody buys and sells with it, right? cut them off, cut off their supplies. Upon this, they came together to build up the city, for as much as part of the wall toward the brook on the east side was fallen down, they repaired that which was called uh, Capanatha. So they rebuilt the eastern wall, or the wall towards the east. Simon also set up Adida in Cephala and made it strong with gates and bars. Now Tryphon, remember Tryphon was the one who trying to he tried to set up Antiochus the Sixth, who we were reading about before, Dionysus. After Alexander the Ballast fell, now Tryphon went about to get the kingdom of Asia and to kill Antiochus the king, that he might set up the crown upon his own head. So now, even he's going to overthrow Alexander. I keep calling him Alexander. Antiochus the Sixth. He used him at first, but now he said, "Now I want the power for myself." Verse 40. Howbeit he was afraid that Jonathan would not suffer him or allow him, because remember at this point he had the young Antiochus the Sixth as the new guy. He already, in last chapter, he sent him a letter saying, "Yeah, let's establish our league. You know, we're friends." But now Tryphon's got greedy eyes himself. So it says he was afraid that Jonathan would not suffer or allow him to do that, and that he would fight against him. Wherefore he sought a way how to take Jonathan that he might kill him. So it's like you can never be on good terms with these Greeks, because they're not on good terms with each other. They're constantly trying to overthrow one another. They never allow a ruler to see, his old days. It's like you figure out a way to overthrow either the dynasty that I'm in, or to overthrow the other Greek dynasty and have power over what they have. So it's constant infighting with these Greeks. True to form. It says, so he removed and came to Bethsan. Then Jonathan went out to meet him with 40,000 men, chosen for the battle, and came to Bethsan. Now when Tryphon saw that Jonathan came with so great a force, he durst not stretch his hand against him, but received him honorably, and commended him unto all his friends, and gave him gifts, and commanded his men of war to be as obedient unto him as to himself. Right? So we know what Tryphon's motives are, us reading the story. But if you're in the story, it's like, okay, maybe the Most High has made him be in our favor, right? Maybe he's doing the Jeremiah 15:11 on him, right? But we know better, knowing the story, knowing what happens. And we see here, gave him gifts. We know what the law talks about that when it comes to when we rule as far as ourselves. When we have our own judges set up, it says you're not supposed to accept gifts. The context being, I'm saying you can't give gifts to your brothers and sisters, not saying that. It's talking about giving a gift to a judge as a means of what? Bribing.
They are.
Exactly. They call filthy lucre, right? Right. To get you to rule in favor of them. To say, hey, just turn a blind eye. Just here, take this little hush money. Just pretend like you didn't see this, extortion going on. Just take this, I know you're trying to, get that new yacht, that new house, that new, whatever. It's a little something towards, what you want. That's the game that you'll see that they play in wicked governments, right? Constantly bribing one another or withholding bribes to get them to comply. But the law that's on that, right? Like my man Jack Palance from the old Batman. But from 12 and 43, here's the law on that, right? Because Moses said, you guys do it as my righteous people. And we didn't do it, and the Most High allowed these nations to rise up and do it to each other and to us. But all it should be a reminder back to us to rule according to righteousness at all times. That way we don't have all these heathens making a mess of things, which we see now. But this is Exodus. Exodus 23 and 8. And Kahamana Shah. If you could read that Baba Shah real quick.
Exodus 23:8. And thou shalt take no gifts, but a gift blindeth the wise, and preserve the word of the righteous.
That's not
Perverted.
right.
Pervert the word of the righteous.
Right. See that?
Wow.
And also read this link. Same, the law is repeated. Get Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 19. All right, after he's finished. Don't forget that verse.
Yeah.
16 and 19 of Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy 16:19. Thou shalt not rest judgment, thou shalt not respect person, neither take a gift, for a gift do blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous.
Right. So you got the more than one precept here on this one, right? But now you see it mentions two other ones too. Don't rest judgment, meaning don't try to hold back evidence or keep witnesses from giving their witness their witness. Don't respect persons is another one. Is a big one. Showing favor because of someone being famous, having an amount of money. That's what we go into respect of persons. And read one more, and then I got you. Get this also in Ecclesiasticus. Get Ecclesiasticus chapter 20 in verse 29. And then after we read that one, y'all you can take it away. So get Ecclesiasticus 20 and 29 to go with this too.
Ecclesiasticus 20 and 29. Present and gift blinded the eyes of the wise, and stopped up his mouth that he cannot reprove.
Okay, so same thing.
1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 1.
I was thinking that too. Okay.
And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Verse 2. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba, and his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment.
Okay. So we got the law. Now we got case law. So there's a case law example right there, right? We talk about the Bible being a legal document, a legal code, right? So now we got in the Bible the legislature itself, the different statutes. Now we got case law too, which is Samuel's, Kings, Chronicles, Maccabees. These all could be considered case law, if you will, of our people and the heathen, either observing Most High's law or breaking it, and then what was the judgment due to that? So this is law school. It's the real law school, right? The Most High being the owner of the Supreme Court, which is the heavens and the earth. So the Most High, the creation is the Most High's court, environment, the court. And we got Christ, he's the judge. You got Michael, he's like our defense attorney. You got Satan, he's the prosecutor. Throw the book at him. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Wicked man. Michael's like, hey, come on, give him a chance. Give Israel a chance. They'll be all right. Just, they're working through things, this, that, and the third. And finally, Christ is sitting on the judge seat. He's going to give the final decision.
But in Job, right? Job. Guilty.
Mm-hmm. Slander. Yeah. So let's go back to First Maccabees. So First Maccabees 12. I'll read 43 again. But received him honorably and commended him unto all his friends and gave him gifts and commanded his men of war to be as obedient unto him as to himself. Also, Psalms 52, which you read earlier, right? With Doeg. But he did the same thing with the tongue devising mischiefs, right? Unto Jonathan also he said, where hast thou put all these people to so great trouble, seeing there is no war betwixt us or between us? Why you got all your people here? What you doing? We just sitting there, trying to, have a nice little conversation, break bread, everything's cool. What's the problem? Wherefore send them now home, and choose you a few men to wait on thee, and come now with me to Ptolemais, for I will give it thee, and the rest of the strongholds and forces, and all that have any charge. As for me, I will return and depart. This is the cause of my coming. So, is Tryphon telling the truth? Let's find out. Is he telling the truth? Yeah, I'm coming to give you, Ptolemy. What he has. Like I said, we're reading a story, so we already know he wants that for himself. So it's like, why would he give this to Jonathan? But let's see. You got to take a man his word, but then just watch him to see what he does afterwards, right? Exactly. It says, so Jonathan, believing him, did as he bade him and sent away his hosts who went into the land of Judea, right? So he took him at his word and he sent away the majority of his hosts. It says in 47, with himself he retained about 3,000 men, of whom he sent 2,000 unto Galilee, and 1,000 went with him. So now he's down to a small unit of 1,000, right? It's kind of messed up as we read on, what takes place because, it's not the fault of Jonathan. I mean, he took him at his word, but it wasn't say he was it was a foolish mistake per se. But these things can happen. But even with him, we read about in the last chapter how even his own men flee from him, but then the Most High still gave him the victory, right? So Jonathan could look at the situation as a Jeremiah 15:11, right? Where it's like, okay, the Most High is going to cause him to treat us well, right? Acknowledging the Most High is ultimately in control. So there's different ways to look at this scenario, right? The situation, as far as what the Most High might be doing. This is in 48. Now, as soon as Jonathan entered into Ptolemais, which is the capital city of where the Ptolemaic dynasty is, right? Egypt. They of Ptolemais shut the gates and took him, and all that came with him, they slew with the sword. So it was a lie. It was an ambush. He betrayed Jonathan, betrayed his trust. And he said, wow, I got him down to 1,000 men. Now he's easy to take. Now I got him on my turf. It says in 49, then sent Tryphon an host of footmen and horsemen, so infantry and cavalry, into Galilee and into the great plain to destroy all Jonathan's companies. Now he sent soldiers to get the rest of his guys that he sent to watch Galilee. And when they knew that Jonathan and they that were with him were taken and slain, they encouraged one another and went close together, prepared to fight. So they said, oh man, they got Jonathan. All right, well, let's make sure they don't get what we have here in Galilee, right? Let's at least hold the fort here. These guys are no good. Got to keep them out of here. They therefore that followed upon them, perceiving that they were ready to fight for their lives, turned back again. So they said, oh man, all right, let's turn back because they're ready for us. We can't meet them face to face, right? The whole idea is to, get them through, trickery and through deception and surprise. But you can't, beat them, face to face when they're ready, because we'll probably suffer more losses like that. Which isn't foolish as far as war is concerned, right? Because they know what kind of problems Israel, can provide, even when we're in small numbers. We saw that in the last chapter, right? The way that he protected, the way Jonathan's men protected Demetrius from a much larger host that was trying to overthrow him. It says, whereupon they all came into the land of Judea peaceably, And there they bewailed. Hold on, skip something. And I didn't. Whereupon they all came into the land of Judea peaceably, as far as the other troops that were with Jonathan, the 2,000 that he sent away. And there they bewailed Jonathan and them that were with him. And they were sore afraid, wherefore all Israel made great lamentation. So it's a sad day where we have Jonathan now fall. So we had Judas before, now we got Jonathan falling, right? Before the heathen at this point. Right, but I remember it was 1,000. Remember he sent 2. He sent out of those 3, he sent 2 to Galilee.
Yeah, he sent 2, but he went to destroy them.
So they killed the 1,000. So the 2,000 in Galilee that they were trying to fight with, remember it says the Greeks left. They didn't try to fight them. So those 2,000 went back to Jerusalem along with those that he already sent back. And they all together mourned for Jonathan. So it says they made great lamentation.
So verse 49, isn't the rest of the 2,000?
Yeah, but it says they turned back when they saw they were ready to fight. In verse 50 and 51, that's what we just read. See it? Yeah, read 50 and 51. So those 2,000 went back along with those he had already sent back to Jerusalem or to Judea. You see it? Verse 53. And all the heathen that were round about them sought to destroy them, for they said, they have no captain, nor any to help them. Now therefore let us make war upon them and take away their memorial from amongst men. So we got to close out with the famous Psalms 83. See, that's where you get the expression when they say, strike while the iron is hot, right? When you're doing metallurgy, right? When you're doing blacksmithing. So the heathen see this and they go, oh man, they're already strong. Even though they outnumber us, I mean, we outnumber them. They're a problem. We meet them head on. Only way we can get the advantage over the Jews when they're down and out, when they don't have today they call it esprit de corps, which is like the spirit of the troops, the spirit of the body. If their spirits are down, it's gonna give us the advantage, right? Because we can fight them afraid. Mosai even did that for us when we fought the heathen. He said, "I'll put the fear and dread upon the nations. You go to fight against them, even though they might be bigger and stronger and more than you. I'll put my spirit on you, and you'll be able to take them out, even though it'll be a few of you." And that's part of the blessing you read in Leviticus 26 chapter. But to link with this last verse in chapter 12 and 53. Nations doing exactly what nations do, right? Like they say, nation's going to nation. They say, hate is going to hate. We can say, nation's going to nation. This is Psalms 83. And Gahan Manashah, you can read that too. Psalms 83. Start from 1. After this, we'll finish up.
Psalms 83, verse 1. Keep not thy silence, O God, or not thy peace, and be not still, O God.
Mm-hmm.
For lo, thy enemy maketh tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head.
Right. So it says, thine enemies. You read scriptures like Numbers 24 and 8, Nehemiah 5 and 9 tells you that what? The heathen are our enemies. The Gentiles are our enemies. Any nation who's not the 12 tribes. They make a tumult or a commotion. It says they lift up the head. Read other scriptures. Lifting up the head means to be made honorable. When someone's head's lifted up. That's what that means. Read on.
Verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, us, and have consulted against thy hidden ones, us. Deuteronomy 32:26. I will scatter them into corners. I will cause the memory of them to cease from among men. Right? So we're the hidden ones, tucked away. Right? you try to avoid when you go to a city. You know.
Verse 4. They have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance."
So there it is. So that's the plan they have, right? So we read here. So they were talking about it then. They're talking about it during the time of Maccabees. They're doing it right now, right? Currently doing it right now. They even went so far as to what? Have their own people, get a family of them and say, "You're the Jew." Anytime we got a movement of us coming together, what do you see? The so-called Jew all up in our face. Hey there, black people, so-called black people. Want some help with that? Want some help with that NAACP? Want some help with that music, that record label? Want some help with that? Always in our face, always helping us out. Even you got was it Louis Farrakhan has that book, right? We're talking about the
Jews and Israel.
well, it doesn't say Israel, but he says, black, so-called black people.
Yeah, black.
Right. The secret relationship between the Jews and so-called black people, right? Where he goes into that history where, the scriptures, you're like, oh, I see what that's really about. That's him just always in our face trying to help. Right? But all the while, they're just keeping tabs.
Yeah, even all of athletes, majority of the time, their agent or their counselor
Yep.
is always Jewish.
Right, exactly. For the algorithm, right? The Jewish. The Jewish. Or you see people say, instead of saying YouTube, they say YouTube, they spell it Y-E-W. YouTube. To the Jewish, or they'll spell it J-E-W too. Because they own the, major entertainment. Like you said, sports, movies, cartoons, music. You look at the board of directors, you'll see the Jewish. Not to say other Esau don't have power too, of course, but that particular family Esau, they have a lot of pull.
But sometimes, I see they do this a lot. They'll say so-called white people, then they'll say Jewish, like the Jewish people are not white people.
Like as if they're a minority.
You ever see like that? I was like, wait a minute, well, he's a Caucasian just like this guy over here.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it the separation? Or is it white people?
Right.
Jewish. That's like
When we had the thing with the Elder Zaquan was going into that a couple months ago, right around the time when Whoopi Goldberg got in trouble, or the comments that she made about that, right, where she was saying, she referred to them as so-called white people, right, the Jewish people, and they did a whole Nick Cannon where they said, let's sit her down with a rabbi to talk some sense into her, to teach her that to be Jewish doesn't mean that you're a so-called white person. It's just like, really? Okay. She needs help in this, this area.
white is nationality.
Well, according to them, yeah. Whereas, I guess they probably say Jewish or Jewish is a culture, the ethnicity. And it's just like, it's just confusion. Scriptures make it clear. Nations and kingdoms. Your nation is your ancestry. Your kingdom is the government that you're under. That's it.
Gave us a movie, Schindler's List.
Right.
Where you feel sorry for them. I can't tell who's from who in the movie.
Get the little Edomite test with the red coat. Yeah. Everything else is black and white, And it pulls your heartstrings. It's just like, oh, this little girl. Poor little girl. Oh, so horrible. This is the worst I've seen since the Diary of Anne Frank. Oh. It has read that in school. Diary of Anne Frank. Everyone knows Anne Frank.
I never read that.
You ever heard that book?
I heard it, I never read it.
Yeah, it's like they made movie. Had us watch the movie about it and everything in school. Diary of Anne Frank. You better say.
I remember back in the day when that movie came out. I think certain countries I can't ban it. They say it's too much sympathy for one race or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the country today will still say that too. They'll still talk about what do you call it? They'll say Zionists. Zionist propaganda. They'll call it Zionist propaganda. Like it's funny because the guy who actually came up with the TV show, actually based on his life, The guy that directed it, I think his name is Michael Mann. He's the one that did like the Miami Vice show and the movie. He has a TV show called Tokyo Vice. Just came out, and there's a scene in there where it's actually based on a Jewish guy that was there, I think, in the '90s as like a journalist in Japan, right? Like a young guy out of college that was going there, and he studied Japanese studies. He wanted to be a journalist in Japan to write about vice and like different criminal stuff going on in Tokyo. But when they were interviewing him, when the Ammonites were interviewing him for one of their major newspapers that was there, they actually in the show, it's funny. They say, "Are you a spy?" They say, "Are you working for the Zionists?" So it's like a scene in the show where they actually are calling him out, like saying, "You a Zionist trying to infiltrate our media?" So just showing you how the heathen doesn't know about so-called Jews. You know what I mean? And like I said, the show is written by, it's about a so-called Jew in Japan, but he actually has that in the show where the Japanese like kind of look at him sideways, like, yeah, you Westerners, especially you Jewish Westerners, we got to keep an eye on you. Like, what are you about? And his colleagues that he's like, because they're like new hires at this newspaper, they're all like joking with him, poking him, like, yeah, our Zionist friend here. It's like a running joke that the Japanese guys have against him being working for the Zionist, movement and trying to infiltrate their media. I just thought that was kind of funny because that's what they do. But then they'll gaslight you and say, "I'm not oppressing you. I'm not taking over your media. No, everything's fine. No, I'm not the bad guy. I'm not a white guy. No, I'm a minority just like you, right? I might be well off, but I'm a minority too. No. That's all in your head. I'm not the bad guy. This is just by you telling me that with a smile, I'm supposed to believe you. That's what they gaslight you. They just tell you, I'm not the bad guy. I'm the good guy. Look at this movie. Watch this movie. See, we're good, right? Not all. You're preaching hate. I think you're a racist. Not all of us. No, I think you're a racist. I think you're an anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite. Hey, everybody, he's an anti-Semite. Ostracize him. Ostracize her. Make them an outcast. That's what they do.
Like the movie for the 300. Bow down to me.
Mm-hmm.
Want everybody to bow down to them. Pay them all kind of money.
Talking about Xerxes?
No, Esau, Amalek.
What movie is it?
No, I said that 300 movie. I take a little extra and say, like, bow down to me.
Oh, like him saying that is what they say. Like, okay, I got you. I was to say, because he's actually he's supposed to be a heathen, right? He's supposed to be a Mede, of the Persians and the Medes. They make him to be more freaky than the Greek. They had the Greeks being all manly and tough, but then they make him have to be like some kind of like androgynous, effeminate type. You know what I mean? That one part, oh my God, when he puts his hands on his shoulders, the thing is, I gotta look away, man. That thing always creeps me out because he's much taller than Leonidas. He comes behind him. It's not the lash they fear. It's like, ugh, Esau, why you do that? It's my divine power. I'm like, yo, this thing is so sus, man. That scene is so sus, man.
Yeah, that was like a really basic.
Hell yeah. Ugh.
One more small stuff. But the guy who made the movie, he said, "Oh, in school he didn't care about racial." I don't want that. But he said, since they were both the same size, he had to make it bigger. You have to work with racial, make it look bigger.
Right.
Yeah. So Esau, like everybody to bow down to them, especially Amalek. Can't say anything bad about them. They're the top elite.
Exactly.
Synagogue of Satan.
Exactly. Don't mess with Mickey Mouse. Otherwise, we'll make you pay. Who runs it now? Another Jewish, Eisner, I think his name is. Jewish. They run all the major media.
Foreign industries.
Shit. Which is so funny because I'm not sure if it's still on YouTube, but I'm not sure what camp the brother's from. He did a really good video where he's got the camera on the he's reading through the protocols of learned elders of Zion, right? Which, their authorities will label as, their rabbis will say, oh, it's a fake, it's a fraud, it's not a legitimate book, it's a forgery, all these names for it. But the brother was going through all the different passages in that book, and as he's going through it, he's like, what they're doing now with this, with that, with this TV show, with this cultural movement, with this, with that. It's like everything as he's reading through that book, Protocols of Learned Elders of Zion, it's all happening. So it's like, okay, if it's not them doing it, clearly somebody believes in this book, because all stuff that's in this book that we say is a forgery, is a fraud, it's been happening over these last couple of decades.
But it's not them doing it. It's somebody else is doing it. Benefiting them. What benefit the person that's doing it has, if it's not them that's doing it?
These are questions we had to ask. So, but that's how Esau hides, right? Because he says, you can't prove it. Say, you're right, but we can also do, what do you call environment observation, like a scientist, and just do deductive reasoning.
It's a conspiracy. Ain't no theory.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Which is funny you say that, because the term conspiracy theory was coined by a CIA agent operative. They came up with the concept of conspiracy theory in the 70s and been using it ever since. Like you said, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's just a conspiracy. Because all conspiracy is just a plan, a plot to achieve a certain goal. That's all it is. Which people do every day. Individuals do every day. I have a conspiracy if I'm, applying for a job or taking my kids to school or whatever I'm doing, right? Every day, life, I conspire to achieve a certain end or a goal, whether it's me or my family or whoever I'm doing it with. So people conspire every day. Not even always for malicious things, but just the context. You hear conspiracy, you automatically think. Right. Brainwash. It's the brainwash. All right, so we'll make an end here, Israel. Sad state of affairs where we have Jonathan, surnamed Apphus, taken out by this Tryphon, right? Greedy for power, ready to kill his own, right? Antiochus VI, get him out of there so he could become the new guy. But like I said, we'll stop here. So we did the 2 chapters. We're going back to 1 Samuel's next week for the Sabbath service. We did 20 and 21 last week. We'll be doing 22 and 23 of 1 Samuel's as the plot thickens, which is David on the run from Saul, right? And Saul setting out the different men to try to apprehend David without a cause. And his son Jonathan being ashamed for his father and what he's doing, trying to kill a righteous man, right? Like the most diligent man in his army, David. So that's going to be next week. So once again, we'll make it end here, and we'll put it out here too, just in case some of you guys may not know. Definitely keep Kaham Pawad, right, of HYK, just keep him in prayer and his family in prayer as they currently mourn, as he and his family currently mourn the loss of his father just this week just passed. So definitely keep him in prayer. Just pray at the Most High, keep him and his family strong. Send angels to minister unto them to help them through this tough time. And and just kind of always just consider just how precious these days that we have are, because it's easy sometimes to kind of you get into a rut, you just kind of forget about what's going on around you, and it's easy to forget about the things that the Most High has blessed you with and that he has given you, to where you can appreciate it. But yeah, definitely send out prayers and hopes and wishes for the fellow Kahan as he mourns his loss. But with that, we'll do the closing prayers, and we'll say Shar Shabbat once again, Wa Manakah Tawab, which just means good afternoon, as well as happy Sabbath day. And with that, we'll do the closing prayers. Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah Nathan Anal Paria Gabin Thwara Man, La Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Yasharah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, that give us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Amadwa, Panua Yerushalayim, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yem, Aitha, Shalak, Ma'ika Allah, Walla Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shamar Ayel, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wa Chazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Wa Shalak, Lanawa, Rabiim, Kakama, Rabiim, Da'if, Rabiim, Bayanah, Rabiim, Sabalanwa, Rabiim, Amawan, Rabiim, Aqua, Rabiim, Ahabiim, Rabiim, Haganah, Rochanaya, Wasalak, Kau, Katayanawa, La Akim, Wa Akiwa, Wayasha'ala, Tamyad, Waiwalam, Ba'asham, Yahawashah, Thawada, Aman. English translation, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabath Yasaparium, Shema Yasharallah Yahweh Elohim Yahweh Echad. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel in the house of books. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. So with that, we'll say Shar Shabbat once again, Wa Malakah Tawab. And Most High's will, we'll talk to everybody this upcoming week in the classes and the Sabbath service to come. Continue to watch and pray, Yashar Allah, as we see more prophecies coming to pass. All what? Leading up to the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.